Greetings, Guzzlers. Tiny Rebel night. Well, Tiny Rebel beer night. Ooh. I bought 4 cans of these. I think they were part of their 11th birthday thing, I think. Blueberry Tart IPL. Or Pale Ale, sorry, not IPA. And I thought the wife might like it, but I thought I'd better give it a taste. It's a little bit tart. Not like some of their ones, that can be exceptionally tart. Very pleasant. I think the wife might like that one. I've got myself some cream stout. Oh, and I've got a load of Stay Puft. Anyway, I digress. We're going to go Basque country. Now, if you don't know where the Basque is, Basque country is, it's essentially bordering on France and Spain. And we're going to make a dish that sort of comes from that region. We're doing chicken with chorizo. It's a bit that colour of that beer, isn't it? Wife just tried it, she likes it, so I think this might be the only one I'll be having. Right, I'm going to get started with our chicken. So the first thing is, I've got 2 tablespoons of plain flour, and I've got a tablespoon of smoked paprika. Can't bloody speak now. And then I'm going to add a generous pinch of sea salt and some black pepper. And this is what we're going to do our chicken in. Now, said to the wife, get me chicken thighs. Don't matter if they're boned or not. The original recipe is assuming you're like either having chicken thighs on the bone and the skin on, or you're taking a whole chicken and you're cutting it up. I thought it would be easier just to do it with chicken thighs, and I thought, and it'd be quicker if you do it without bones on it, but I said I want skin on it. So what you done? Bought me boneless and skinless ones. So you're not going to get a nice sort of browned skin, if you like. So I've mixed that up, and then what we're going to do is then just chuck our chicken into that, coat them all, and then try that. That could be a very Moorish beer, that. And then we're going to fry them up before we move on to get the other ingredients. Now, the other ingredients, obviously you're going to need some chorizo, 2 onions, 2 medium. I've got sort of 1 largish and 1 smallish. Plenty of garlic, at least 6 cloves, some olive oil, some bay leaves, some Madeira, or you can use sherry if you haven't got that, or even port if you want. And passata, because I'm not putting up chopped tomatoes. Okay, and some passata. That's really all it is. It's quite a simple-ish dish, although obviously it does take some time to cook it, particularly if it's on the bone. And we're going to have it with rice. Okay, so let me get coating my chicken. So I'm just taking each chicken thigh, and we're just going to coat it in that flour and paprika mix. Now, the Basque country, like I said to you, is this area up by the Bay of Biscay and sort of along the sort of French-Spanish border. There is even a Basque language, though it has at times been outlawed. Okay, and it's probably true to say that although there are Basque speaking people, a lot of bloody chicken thighs in here, isn't there? There's not as many as there would have been in the past, and in fact there are some areas around Navarre where people have in the past said we're not Basque. That didn't go down too well, and as a result that did cause a little bit of tension. So, like I say, whether this is truly from the Basque region, a little bit unsure, but it's certainly a dish that is a mixture of both French and Spanish cuisine, hence the connection with the Basque area, but equally border country food. Probably done with a little bit more of this, given the number of thighs. So we're just going to now put this to one side while we prep everything else. Let me just put that there, and then we can get on with starting the cooking. Now I've put my oven on. I want it on fan oven about 190. Okay. Now you can do this in a Dutch oven if you want. We're not. We're going to do it in this pan. Chopped a bit off my chorizo. My wife's had that bit. You want about 180 grams of that. Peeled my tomatoes, peeled my onions, and I've peeled my garlic. So with the onion, we want to dice this finely, as it were. That's finely enough. So, this Basque region is very much believed to be remnants of Paleolithic tribes that sort of settled in that area and sort of remained, if you like. And like I say, you know, there are still those who are very staunch Basque. Equally, there are others who live in that region who don't necessarily consider themselves Basque. But there you go. They do, like I say, have their own language in a way. The word butterfly, which I can't now remember what it is something like Palimpinatonic toe, I don't know. Apparently was once voted the most beautiful word in Basque. It doesn't sound very beautiful the way I've just said it, does it? So that's my onion chopped. I'm going to transfer that into a bowl, and then I'm just going to slice up my garlic. And then the only other preparation is we want to cut some thinnish slices of chorizo. I should add, if you don't like chorizo, don't make this bloody dish then, because the chorizo is going to come through in it. Where's my beer? So into your pan or pot that you're going to cook it in, you want to add about 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Now, you do want olive oil in this case. Olive oil is the oil of choice in the Basque country. And then we're just going to put it on to about a medium-ish heat. Medium to high. And then what we're going to do is, when that's come up to temperature in a minute, we're going to start cooking our chicken. Okay, if it had skin on, put its skin side down first, cook that, and then turn it over. Now we're not fully cooking it. In a way, it's a little bit like searing the outside. Okay, we're not trying to go for crispy skin. Well, we won't be able to do that with these, will we? She did hear me earlier, and she said, well, can I buy the wrong chicken again? I said yes. Yeah, we're not trying to make it all crispy at this stage. We're just trying to cook it. We're going to finish off the cooking when it goes in the oven. So I've diced the onion. I've sliced finely me garlic. I'll slice me chorizo while we're cooking my chicken, and we're going to do the chicken in batches. So I'm just going to put what I can into that. Now, like I say, you want it about a medium-ish heat. We don't necessarily want it searing hot. And actually, when it comes to cooking the onion, the interesting fact I learned was that actually onion, you know, we tend to sort of cook onion quite quickly, I think, without appreciating that actually it takes a long time to cook onion to make sure it's all fully cooked, which is what we're going to be wanting to do. Now, I am going to put, when I've cooked that lot, I am going to put it back in that dish, because it doesn't matter, because like I say, it's all going back in and it's all going to be cooked again. So it doesn't matter that it might be a bit of mixing. Incidentally, I've just laid these on here. My Joseph utensils, which I've now replaced, the silicone ends were great with the heat, but I was always a bit dubious about the rubber handles, and they were starting to look a bit manky. But then the other day, I just suddenly discovered where I blinked one on here, all the rubber had melted all around the edge of my pot. Not impressed, so I've ditched them. So that's the second Joseph product that I have to say, given the cost of it, not impressed with. The worst by a long way was their whisk, which fell apart first time you ever used it. Anyway, I digress. So we're just going to cook that chicken. I'm going to have to find another beer, and then while I'm doing all of that, I'm going to slice my chorizo. So there's my chorizo sliced. I've turned my chicken, so one side is nicely done. Okay, now I've got another tablespoon or so of oil. When we cook this, we'll leave the oil that's in there, but we'll add a little bit more to cook our onions off. And here's my cream stout. So I was saying to you that we use olive oil because that is traditionally what the Basques use. And there are certain dishes that do come from that region. For instance, there's dishes cooked over coals, lamb, cod, what was it, tolosa beans, or tolosa beans, I don't bloody know. There's a sort of tapas that are specific to the Basque region. There's a particular sheep's cheese, there's sparkling wine, pardon me, and there's a Basque cider, which I imagine all as gassy as that beer that's just made me burp. So, I think that chicken might just be done enough. So like I say, all we're going to do now is just transfer this onto the dish. A bit of chicken come up here. And we're then going to just cook the remaining chicken. The oil's going a nice reddy colour. It's going to go red when we put that chorizo in it. And like I say, don't worry about the fact that we're mixing raw and sort of cooked meat there, because it's all going to get cooked again. There's a lot of Jewish influence in Basque cooking and Spanish cooking generally, partly because of, like I think I've said to you in the past, on some of the other dishes we've cooked, with the influx. Oh, I've already cooked. Got to take that one out. Portuguese. So, with the influx of new foods from the New World, like potatoes, the Basque were very quick to sort of take them on board. Various hams, sausages, peppers. Getting a bit warm here. We're in the middle of a heat wave. Not that you'd know it if you work where I work, where apparently we have to put the heating up because it's chilly. It's been 30 degrees centigrade. But apparently anything less than 22 is chilly where I work. I can assure you it's bloody not. So that's my chicken all removed, and I'm going to turn this down to sort of low medium, and we're going to add in another tablespoon of olive oil. Just let that get up to temperature a little bit, and then we're going to chuck in the onions, and we're going to cook them gently, giving it a regular stir for about 10 minutes. Like I say, it does take quite some time. And we're going to use a wooden spoon, and I don't know how well you can see that. This is a couple of my patrons. Gave me a set of cooking stuff. There you go, customised wooden spoon. We're going to use a wooden spoon, particularly when we get to deglazing it, and that's what the Madeira is for, or some of it. So in goes those onions, and like I say, we want to now just slowly cook those onions. We're not trying to brown them, hence we're going to have a low heat, but we want them cooked. Okay, and apparently, according to my French chef that I follow, what we tend to do is not necessarily cook our onions properly, and don't, like I say, don't appreciate that these onions do take a while to cook. Final little note about Basque cuisine. During the 70s and 80s, they began to get influenced by the Nouvelle cuisine in France, and thought, oh, now there's a Nouvelle way of looking at things. Do you like what I did there? And so they took some of the more traditional Basque dishes and put a bit more of a modern twist on them, i.e. created Basque Nouvelle cuisine. So, like I say, that wants about 10 minutes. What time is that? Meaning this telling you the time, innit? Because when you see this, it'll be completely different. In fact, probably when you see this, it won't be in the middle of a bloody heat wave. Although we did have some rain today. I think it lasted about 3 minutes. I've just seen there's a fly in here. That little bastard's going to die. So them onions about 10 minutes. Okay, well, not quite, give it another minute or two. This pan actually is really sort of like good at being non-stick. So when we deglaze it, I mean, there isn't really anything deglazed, but quite often, depending what pan you're using, you know, you get your sort of almost, not burnt, but you know, they're burning on bits. And the idea of deglazing is to remove that. And the ideal tool for doing that with is some liquid and a wooden spoon. So we're saying about the Basque country, that was part of the border, if you like, between the two countries, France and Spain. The actual border goes from like Bay of Basque all the way across. It's just shy of 408 miles. But interestingly, quite near the beginning on the Bay of Biscay, there's a river. I'm going to sneeze, I think. Am I going to sneeze? Alright, I'm not. Bedoza, or Bedaza, I don't know. And in the middle of that, there is an island, Pheasant Island. It's quite a big island. Big enough that there's obviously people who live on it. And it was like, oh, there's a bit of a dilemma here, because the river is actually forming our border. So one side of the river is France, the other side is Spain. This island's in the middle. What are we going to do? So, depending on what half of the year it is, half of the year, basically it's its own continent, I can't bloody say that word. It's got its own place, okay? And so, for part of the year, half the year it's French, and the other half of the year it's Spanish. And that was decided to be the ideal way of coping with it, because it is halfway between the two. Pardon me, disgraceful. About to open another beer. So, what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to take my Madeira, it's about 80 odd mils there, and I'm going to add about half of that, okay? And the idea being, at this point, we would use that to get the bits off if you like. Now I said to you, make sure the onion's cooked. We're still going to be cooking this for a bit before we put it in the oven. So we're just going to let that heat through, and now at this point I'm going to put in that garlic. The bay leaves and the chorizo, and now we're just going to then cook this through for about another 10 minutes or so. Now, I don't know if I've just said this or not, the passata, I've opened that packet and I've got about 200-250 grams of passata there ready to tip in, but we're not ready to put that in yet. We just want to get this cooked through a bit. So I'll tell you about Pheasant Island. The actual formal, or the first formal border agreement between France and Spain was in 1659. Since that time, there has been several different adjustments, if you like, and adjustments to the treaty. Essentially the border has more or less stayed the same, but sometimes bits of it have moved one way and some bits have moved the other way. Usually it's a bit of, well, if you're having that bit now, we're having an equivalent amount somewhere else. Notably, in 1980, when there was a tunnel, presumably through a mountain or something like that, that essentially went across the border, they wrote a new treaty, or an amendment to the treaty, to say that we've had to shift the barrier, you know, whereas before this side it was France, this side it's Spain. Now, like halfway through the tunnel it's France, and then it becomes Spain, and so that of course had to be written into law. I believe there was another one to do with a road again, that meant that, well, we'll have to do a little bit of adjustment, and because you're nicking that amount of land, we're going to nick that the same amount of land, so 2,700 square metres sort of exchanged, if you like. Right, so like I say, we're just going to cook this through for about 10 minutes. Now, we are going to be using the rest of that Madeira. We're going to use the passata, and then of course we'll be putting the chicken in there. Now, we're not making a stew, so we might need to add a little bit of liquid water or something like that, but we're not making a stew. Basically, we just want enough liquid in there that we can cook it properly. We're not like cooking it in the liquid. The liquid is just taking some of it. So that's at about 10 minutes. So now we're going to add in that passata. Just mix that in a little bit. Now, this is why we've kept the other half of the Madeira, because the tomatoes will add a little bit of acidity to it. Oh, this beer's gassy, isn't it? And so, just to take the edge off of that, we then add in the remainder of that. I might put that there, I might use that glass for later. I might have to have some warm wine later. Oh look, managed to splash passata up. I don't know how that went there, from here. So now we're just going to cook this for a little while, about a minute. And like I say, you know, it's not overly liquid, but if we feel after we put our chicken in, it's still a little bit on the dry side. You know, cooking it in the oven with the lid on, we can add up to about 100 odd mils of water. But like I say, what we don't want to do, we're not stewing the bloody meat, right? So we're saying about the French-Spanish border, it used to be that when they then established the border, and sometimes they moved it, then Spanish farmers, for instance, would say, "Oi, my fields are on the French side. How the bloody hell am I going to go over there and work?" So they used to have passes to say that they were entitled to go across the border freely to go and actually farm their own fields. But of course that all ended in 1995 with the Schengen Agreement in Europe, basically where free borders. Everybody could come and go across the borders they liked. So of course all those sort of passes and everything became irrelevant. But interestingly, there's 602 stone cairns that go along the border to actually define this is the French-Spanish border. There you go. There's your boring history lesson. So now at this point, what we're going to do is we're now just going to add our chicken back in. Like I say, there is a lot of thighs here, probably a little bit more than we really needing. Remember I said you could use a whole chicken, so obviously there would be more, but perhaps not necessarily this amount. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to scrape the remainder of those juices into there as well. And then you just want to sort of, whoops, splash it everywhere. Just want to get the chicken covered with some of the sauce. Like I say, the idea is it's sitting in the sauce, not sunk in the sauce, if you like. So I think that is essentially it. So we're going to turn that heat off, put the lid on, and now it's going to go into. Now if you were cooking these on the bone, it might need 45 minutes in the oven. Because these are boneless, it's probably only going to take about half hour. During that time, you'll want to cook your rice. So I've already got some rice prepared, ready for cooking. So I'm going to start cooking that whilst this is in the oven. So, see you in 30 minutes. In the magic of video, it'll be like. So here we go. Time to serve up. Got your rice on the plate. Take the lid off. The wife chucked a load of crap in the sink. It's in me way, but there you go. Never mind. So there you go. You can see you've got the sauce. Actually, I might use the ladle. So I'll put some of the chicken on the plate. We'll make sure we get some chorizo. So this is, remember, our Basque chicken with chorizo sauce. There's a bay leaf there. Remember, we don't want to eat the bay leaves. Okay, and we've got a lot of thighs here. So I think we might be having some of this for lunch tomorrow. So let me just move this to one side. Just wipe up that mess there. And let's just check this out. So, bit of chorizo. Tastes just like chorizo. You can see how very much the colour has changed because of that chorizo in there. The smoked paprika had a little bit of red, but mainly most of that's come from the chorizo. Chicken's nice and tender. It's not dry, nice and moist. The overwhelming flavour is chorizo. So if you don't like chorizo, don't cook the bloody thing. But I do, so's the wife. And I get a bit of that rice in that sauce, a bit of that chicken. Ooh. That's lush. Or shall I say, that's sick.